Pretty simple video today. I'm going to show you how to make basically anything that you want, any piece that you want, silver, Lego silver, or pretty close to it. So this piece right here is one of Galva's designs for a chess piece, very clearly inspired by the Toa Nuva armor, but in this case, I decided to go ahead and silverize it. This is something that you can do very easily, very cheaply, and you need no real skill to do it. This is also a very good match for both Lego's classic silver, if you want to use parts for like your Toa Nuva sets, and it's a pretty good match as well, even for Lego's pearl silver. So if you want to work with something that's a little bit newer, a little more modern, yeah, then it's going to work out reasonably well for you. The product we're going to be using, it's just one thing, a silver Sharpie. These are magic. I really love them. Now, I will definitely say that you might be using it for a few minutes. It's going to smell. Maybe do this outside on your porch or something like that. It's near 80 degrees here, so it'd be a great day to do it. Probably not so great where blizzards and things are going on. But suffice to say, this is a good product in its whole. Just because this is such a good match for Lego's silver specifically, and it's very easy to apply. If I were to take a piece like this, which is just 3D printed, it's been cured, it's been allowed to sit and, you know, do all its stuff, and essentially just go over it with the marker, it's just gonna stick. And the nice part about it too is that although it will stick to it pretty near instantly, so it's definitely something you want to test first, make sure you want that piece to accept the color, it can kind of be rubbed off if it's necessary, if you get to it pretty early on. So rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, is something that you can use to remove it for the most part. I can't guarantee that it's going to come off of every surface, but it is a permanent marker, right? So expect it to be permanent, but, you know, hey, if you get a little bit of extra, you know, playtime with it and you're like, oh, I didn't want it in this spot, you know, you have some time to work around and remove it. On top of that, something I wanted to say too is that it actually is essentially paint in a marker, right? And so it is something that will need some time to dry. Unlike, you know, a regular permanent marker or something, you are going to want to give it a day, 2 days, 3 days, something like that. Just sit, let it do its thing. You know, you can go over it, do a second coat if you want to, if that's something that's interesting to you. You could go out of your way, if you're way more skilled than I am, to color just certain parts of a piece. And the nicest part too is that not only does this work quite well on 3D printed pieces for a quick touch up, and you could brush you know, a paper towel or a washcloth or something over it to remove some of it, give sort of a dry brushed appearance. I'm not an expert at this, so I'm probably saying the wrong terms. But the nice part is that if you're more skilled than I am, you can actually get some pretty accurate sort of pinpoint details with it. Something else you may want to consider too is using something like a toothpick, for example, to get into like really fine corners, both to take the paint off of this and put it on whatever you're using, or vice versa. Use the toothpick to actually scrape away some of the paint that you've already gotten in there. There are probably better items for that. And again, I am not somebody who goes out of my way to really paint stuff, but that's, you know, pretty good. Obviously, you can see I got it on like the nose area here. No big deal. I could wipe that off if I wanted to, if I didn't want to go further than this, but I do want to go further. So it's a really good product. Thankfully, they're fairly cheap too, and you can get them in different colors. I've only really experimented with silver specifically for Lego purposes, but they have like metallic greens, metallic blues, reds, coppers, golds, etc. And so those could also be a lot of fun to use. I do have a gold marker somewhere. I'm not sure where right now, and I think I've tested it in the past. It was not a match for anything that Lego made, but the silver is really respectable. Now, for what it's worth, I think it's like maybe $2 for one of these. So it's, you know, it's a marker, but it lasts a decent amount of time as well. You'll get a lot of use out of it, a lot of coverage out of it. And because it has that felt tip on it, right? It's much easier to brush away air bubbles or little bits of, you know, dust flying around the air if they get caught in the paint. One of the easiest ways to sort of re-wet the paint if it has dried is just go over it again with the same marker. Whatever is in the marker keeping that paint fluid will influence the paint that's already dried on whatever surface. And so if you use the marker again on a surface where the paint has dried, then it will, you know, brush away a piece of hair or a little flake of something if it got in there, which is good. So yeah, definitely a very useful little item. And I know a lot of people do know about this, but there are a lot more that probably haven't even given it the option. So a lot of people go out of their way to buy like spray cans, and that can work too, especially if you're very skilled with it. But again, it's something you want to do outdoors if at all possible. And of course, if you're not skilled with it, I'm not, you might spray something and then decide, oh, this does not look very good. It came out really poor. It runs. I got the wrong color. Got a low quality paint, whatever. And this is just no fuss, You color the parts you want to color. You don't have to worry about taping anything off unless you really want to, but you do have that option. And you just color it in wherever you want it to go, and you're pretty much set at that. Now, I will say, if there are any areas that are like really tight corners, again, the toothpick trick that I mentioned can help to get in those fine corners. You might have to give it a few passes and do those corners first. But I've found that the felt on these markers is actually reasonably soft. And so it's pretty easy to kind of force it down into those corners. Just know that you might end up with a little island of extra paint there from pushing down because the paint is loaded in that felt, right? So you might want to go over it again a second or third time after the fact just to kind of smooth it out, move that paint glob that you've now placed on there and just spread it out. So it's so you're reserving more of it, if you will. And yeah, it works out really well. And you can see here, just kind of playing around with it. You're getting some pretty good color. Silver is not going to show up the best against the dark gray here, or the kind of medium gray here. I do understand that on camera, but for all intents and purposes, it does work out pretty well. And again, it's just a very cheap, inexpensive, quick sort of one pass and you're done. And that's the other thing I like about it too, is that for the most part, it's pretty potent color. So it has a good amount of pigment to it, meaning that you don't need like a thick application of it to really get it in there. Like you maybe one or two passes with the marker and it's pretty much good to go. So, you end up with a surface where you don't lose a lot of the texture. I think that's one of the other issues with spraying is that spray paint is a layer on top, as is this. And so a lot of people tend to spray heavy if they don't know what they're doing, like myself. And so it could mean that you lose out on a lot of those really fine details because the paint sort of bunches up in those areas, right? But yeah, so that's just kind of one half of it silverized, if you will. I'm trying to hold it here where you can see it a little better. But yeah, you can see what's kind of going on here. And so let me just go ahead and set that one back down for a minute so I can show you, again, the armor piece itself compared to official Lego. So if I were using like you can't even hardly tell the difference. And even in front of me, like, yeah, I know that this piece is painted. It's not cast in that color. And it is a little bit darker than Lego's Pearl Silver, but it's well within reason, especially as a paint that just matches out of the marker. You don't have to mix anything with it. You don't have to go out of your way to buy something that's a little more exclusive or harder to find. And with Lego's more classic silver, it's a really good match for that as well. I think just depending on the lighting that you're in, it's going to match one or the other better, but neither is it going to look off, if that makes sense. Comparing it with other shades of silver, let me just do that real quick too. Lego's current modern flat silver is a bit darker, so it is much more notable or noticeable that it does not match. And just for fun, if I can get it in my hands, flip-flop silver, which is nowhere near the right shade, but still kind of fun and cute to see at the very least. So that's basically everything I want to go over in this video. It's just something very simple. I actually wanted to make a different video today addressing a topic that a sibling of mine actually had posted about, but I think I want to give that one a little bit more time just because I don't specifically know what I want to say yet. But I want to talk about my personal experience in a future video with, I want to say depression in a way, thankfully, just really quickly, I haven't been depressed for a while, but I am someone who suffers from it. And I think just generally our family is, maybe it's something genetic, I don't know, but I've been thankful that in the past few years, I've noticed myself, my beliefs, the way I kind of go about life changing. And so although there are still moments where I can fall into depression, just like anybody who suffers from it, I think just anybody in general suffers from some degree of depression because rightfully so, we all have our battles, right? At the end of the day, I've been lucky enough to be in a mostly stable situation. Now, thankfully, as well, everything's kind of on the mend, going better for us. We are at least bringing in some, money to pay bills, to make sure rent and everything is paid, not from like YouTube or anything, but just, from what we do here. And that's been good to us for the most part. Now, it's not enough money to like, be like, oh yeah, we can go buy a brand new car. Like, no, but we're getting by, for the first time in a while. And I'm really happy about that. It's still tedious for sure. And it's still kind of up in the air at the end of the day. But I understand that at the very least, given positions I've been in the past, that this is far better. So I'm very happy about that. And again, I take care of my mom. So between the two of us and owning this place, it's a trailer, but at least we own it. We don't pay the rent for it itself. And that's a huge burden off our backs. With that, we at least make enough to have a little bit of savings each month so that in a few months, if we need to get something more expensive, we have that option, right? As I've stated, I want to get a new computer for the channel. It's probably something I'm going to build and maybe even make a video about if that's something that I'm in the position to do. I don't need anything that's fancy. I don't really game, but I would like to get something that can handle doing some video editing and stuff like that, or doing some 3D modeling, what have you. And so that's more or less what I'm kind of looking into right now. I've been doing a bit of research on the back end. I also want to make sure that for the channel's sake, that things are presented in progressively better ways. I do like, for the most part, the format that we have settled on so far, and most people do. I understand that there are some people who like videos with more visuals, and that's mostly a hardware limitation on my part, but also there are other reasons why I don't have too many visuals in current videos. And that's something I plan to change as the channel grows, as, equipment in here grows, and as I grow more experienced as a content creator, I guess. It's crazy to say that, we're getting ever closer, stepping just a little bit more towards 3,000 subscribers. And I didn't think that we would be here, So, yeah, it's heartwarming at the very least. The last thing I wanted to say before I end the video is that there's other types of content that I would like to make in the future as well, not just focus solely on the Bionicle content, but I have a lot to offer as just an individual. And there are a lot of things that interest me as well. So although I know that a lot of the people are here watching for the Bionicle content, I'd like to know your thoughts on what else you would like to see on this channel. If you took everything Lego or Bionicle related out of the channel itself, what do you think you would want to come to this channel to see, or for me to present to you, if that makes sense? Maybe that's a silly question to pose, but at the end of the day, it is an important one. And of course, it doesn't mean that it's going to overshadow the Bionicle content, because this is still my passion, and I'm still going to keep on trucking along. All right, with all that being said, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, because it tells the YouTube algorithm that you want to see more content like this. And of course, it helps out the channel as well, getting us closer to that 3,000 goal, I guess. And lastly, the last thing I want to go ahead and say was, if you want to join the conversation, make sure to check out the comments. Discord, Instagram, and Patreon are all linked in the description if you want to support the channel and get some perks. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.